Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Wildlife in Watercolor. As usual, we are joined by the amazing and talented artist, Miss Loni.
Hey guys, what's up?
And the ever so knowledgeable and a plethora of facts, Miss Lauren. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
And I want to wish everybody happy May the 4th. As today is May the 4th, so we are, I want to say I'm geeking out a little bit with Star Wars stuff.
Woo! I'm wearing my bat shirt. I feel like that's kind of spacey.
Maybe. Yeah, Star Wars is a little spacey.
Some bats.
So
aliens.
So before we get started with painting today, I want to give everybody just a couple of reminders. I see that we have some familiar faces with us today, like Lena and Harrison and Sandy. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, this is for you. This presentation is audiovisual, so even though you can see and hear us, we can't see and hear you. With that in mind, you can use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen to ask questions. Okay, like I said, today's webinar is Wildlife in Watercolor, and we're gonna continue our trek across the United States and talk about the Northeast region. Upcoming, we have our Animal Adventures Workshop, and we're going to be looking at animal clues with Kids Space Museum and kind of find out what animals they are, how they got there, and how we know that they were actually there. Okay? If at any time you want to go back and watch this webinar again, it is recorded. And as usual, if you want to share your artwork, you can use this link that you see on your screen, and I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat box as well. And before I give it to Miss Loni and Miss Lauren, if you do need the stencils for the mole and the red fox, they are in the handout section on the right-hand side of your screen. So ladies, without further ado, take it away.
Hey guys. There you are. Hi. So hey guys, welcome. We're really happy to have you. Before we get started and we start chatting about our animals today, I wanted to show you, I kind of dark lined it. We have our stencils cut out and ready to go. I actually took our fox and I cut out the bottom piece here just so you guys, so you guys can see it. And then I cut his eyes out so you guys could outline that. Then I went ahead and cut out our mole. So this will be the second piece we work with. Supplies, guys, you need our awesome watercolor set, and I always recommend some really cool watercolor pens or watercolor brushes, no problem if you have those too. This is just to kind of blot our paints as well. So as I get started, we are going to just get into the outlining of both pieces first. So I'm going to go ahead and line up our fox. Now this fox that I actually made for you guys is a little thin down the bottom there. So we're gonna thicken him out when we draw him. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do a quick outline for you guys, like so. And I'm actually gonna make him fatter. So I actually went ahead and made his little furriness because Lauren, he's got a lot of fur, right? We're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Like so. Then I'm going to remove the bottom half like so. And then this is going to kind of tell you where his mouth starts. This pencil is sad. Let me get another one. Here we go. For his little mouth, his little chin, like that. And then when you cut out his eyes, they're kind of small, but at least it kind of shows you where his eyes would fall. So just keep that in mind when you're actually outlining him later. And like so, like that. And then the last part we're going to do is I would just use the same template that you have, and it's kind of a rounded nose, so you guys can practice working on his nose. Kind of a little ovally like that, and then it kind of pops up, goes back down, up, and then goes down. I'll show you guys that in a minute. And then I just made his little mouth like so. And there you go. And then the last part I would say is just kind of do the his ear, which I think we were talking last week, Lauren, kind of like an earlobe, right? We were saying. So there you go, guys. That's what the first outline is going to look like. In the drawing, the original drawing, I actually drew this cool tree and stuff. I don't think I'm going to do it this time, but you guys can go ahead and add a tree as well. The next piece we're going to outline is our mole. We're actually going to go the other way. And he looks like he's popping out of the dirt. So we're actually going to be working on various colors of brown for him. He's actually really dark brown, or you can use black, but make sure that it's kind of a gray. And we're going to do some little fur on him as well.
Dang, I forgot my mole. It's at work.
Oh no, I love that little mole. Lauren has a mole that she got as a gift.
I have a mole. They're so soft.
They are. When I go back to work, when I go to your awesome office, I want to see this mole.
You have to come
So
pet it.
Guys. So I just went ahead and his digits, or his, did we say his digits or his, I can remember his paws. What is it again, Lauren?
They're paws.
They're paws, right? Okay,
Yeah,
guys.
individual fingery things are digits.
Yeah, they're like fingeries. So I'm going to go ahead and this is kind of a rectangle. It's kind of like a snout when you look at it forward facing, but they have like a starfish kind of thing popping out, right, Lauren?
Yeah, there's a certain kind of mole called I think it's called the star-nosed mole. And
there you go.
so there's a couple different kinds of moles, and some of them have like really wild fingery noses, but some of them are just like a straight up snout.
Yeah, so we're going to focus more on him looking up outside of a hole and right after we finish the red fox. So we're going to use red colors, really cool red and browns, guys. You guys get to play around with these cool colors. I'm going to use probably this tone here and this tone here, but you can go ahead and play around with it. And so let's talk a little bit about the red fox, because I know that they're very furry and their climate is pretty cold, right, Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It can be in the cold or in the warm. They are pretty widespread. They're found throughout the continental United States. They're found in Alaska all the way down to Florida. So they're very, very adaptable. And that fur does play a significant role in those colder climates to keep them warm. But they definitely can survive in warmer temperatures too. But in places like here, like the Southwest, we're not going to see the red foxes as much, possibly because it is maybe too hot. But they like open areas, woodlands, rural and suburban neighborhoods. They've adapted to, live where the humans live too. But they also like wetlands. They like brushy fields, and they have the largest natural distribution of any land mammal, except for human beings.
That's amazing. That means that they can basically live almost anywhere, right, Lauren? I mean, it's amazing. I mean, even the coloration on this actual animal versus the kind of the animals in our areas, kind of brushy browns and sort of mountainous areas, but it's like desert colors. And I can see that, like you said, this one's more in the foresty areas, so it kind of blends in a different way, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And some of the other really cool adaptations that the foxes have is that you see that they have those big ears. And so one of their best senses is their sense of hearing, and they can hear really low frequency sounds. And that's like, how sound is a wave, and the frequency of the wave makes it either like higher pitch or lower pitch, or just makes it easier or harder to hear depending on what kind of hearing you have. So the foxes, they can hear those really low frequency sounds that a lot of other species can't hear. such as rodents digging underground. So they
Wow.
use that to hunt. And I know a lot of people probably saw that YouTube video of the fox, in the snow, kind of creeping around, and you're like, what's he gonna do? And then all of a sudden he jumps up and dives straight down and catches a catches a mouse or some other little rodent. But that's because they have that really good hearing.
That's amazing. So is that how they communicate with one another as well?
They do use a lot of different vocalizations. They use body language a lot, and they also use smells, so they can smell each other and they can give off smells, and that also is another way that they communicate. They have their vocal range is pretty wide, and they can produce sounds that span 5 octaves,
Wow.
which I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And those sounds, biologists have divided them into what's called contact calls and
Mhm.
interaction calls. So the contact calls are making contact with other foxes, and then interaction calls, um, it's like when they're actually mid interaction. Um, but yeah.
And would you say, are they very territorial in the way that a lot of predators are in our area? Like even, like coyotes they can span, they have big families of packs, correct?
Yeah, so foxes, they don't really hang out in packs. They've adapted to neighborhoods in such a way that they are pretty solitary, and that actually helps them be able to adapt to urban environments better than if they were in packs, because it makes them, have the ability to hide. If there's only one of them, it's easier to hide, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they pretty much just hunt by themselves, and they're pretty solitary, except for during mating season, like a lot of animals. And they'll mate in the wintertime, and usually right after mating, the female will build a den, and they'll have anywhere between 1 and 12 pups per litter, and that's usually based on the availability of resources. So just like coyotes, they will have more pups if there's an abundance of resources available. Um, and then if it's kind of like a dry year where there's not as much food available, then they maybe won't have as many pups. Um, and when they're born, they're not red, they're actually gray,
Wow.
or brownish, but they'll usually turn more of a redder color within like a month. And both of the parents will take care of their offspring until the next fall, when those foxes will set out on their own. And they'll usually live, up to like 4-ish years in the wild. So not super long life, but I think they make the most of it.
Yeah. Would you say that the reason why they're born that color is sort of as protection because they're so small?
I couldn't tell you for sure, but that would be a really good guess.
Right?
A lot
I
of
mean,
animals are a lot of animals are born different colors, and then they get their, like, even with birds, they'll change into their adult plumage, once they're at sexual maturity.
mhm.
And that might be a sign to other animals that they are ready to breed once they have that coloring. So it could be a variety of different things, but that's a good question.
So would you say also, you know how like coyotes in our neighborhood are considered sometimes just like more of a pest? People are kind of get frustrated with them and maybe they're not technically the most popular animal to have around. Do you feel like maybe that's the way it might be for a red fox in certain areas as well?
Yeah, definitely in some places people see them as pests because they do eat, they eat like people's chickens and stuff sometimes, and so people aren't too happy about that if they're the kind of people that see their chickens as pets, or even if they're relying on chickens for a food source. So their diet mostly consists of like rodents and rabbits, but they'll also eat birds, amphibians, and fruit, and they'll steal out of garbage cans, or they'll steal if there's like a farming community that they live near, they'll take advantage of that and eat pretty much whatever they can find. That ability that they have to find food even during the winter is one of the main reasons why the foxes have a reputation for being very tricky and cunning and smart. They're really good at finding those food sources. So that's why some people, you know, aren't too happy with them. They've really thrived in areas where their large predators have been pushed away. So like in a lot of communities, even in California. Did you need to talk about your colors?
Nope. I'm just telling people we're going to start doing you read my mind, but yeah, we're just going to do a nice wash in the background for this piece. And then we're going to go back and do some dark outlining. And then that's when he'll really pop up. Anyways, go ahead, Lauren. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just saying that they, you know, they in a lot of places, like in California, for example, you know, we've completely gotten rid of wolves and grizzly bears. So in places like that where there aren't a lot of other big predators, the foxes have really, you know, thrived, and so they took advantage of that changed habitat, and so so that's why they're so prolific in a lot of different areas. They are hunted for sport, for their fur, though not so much anymore these days because fur isn't as popular. But they are also hunted or killed because they are destructive, according to some people, and it's called depredation. And so because they're predators, they you know, prey upon smaller animals, like I was talking about with people with chicken coops, for example. So it is legal in a lot of places for people to get depredation permits to remove problem, quote unquote, problem foxes if they are predating on their chickens or other animals that they have. Though of course it's always best to have prevention, because if you still have those chickens and it's not, you know, it's not in a safe space that's not accessible to the foxes, then, you know, another fox is just going to come in and eat the chickens, even if you catch and remove that one original fox. Were you going to talk about the eyes?
Yeah, I totally am. You read my mind, friend. So you guys, I actually added oh, I got a little water on there. I'll let it dry for a second. So if you guys ever get water on your piece, you can kind of soak it up. It'll totally soak it up just like that. Kind of cleans. It's like your eraser, but it's a napkin. I'll show you guys in a second. You just dab it. There you go. And that kind of went away. So I just added the pupil inside the eyeball, and I'm just going to go ahead and line it while Lauren's talking about their amazing eyes. Yeah, they have really beautiful eyes too.
Yeah, and I think Miss Michelle was going to talk about a little bit about how
Cool.
their eyes are similar to cat's eyes. Did you have a question about that, Michelle?
I do. I can go ahead and put that question up on the screen now.
Go for it.
So true or false? Foxes have retractable claws.
This one will be a guess because I didn't talk about that.
That's a good one. We didn't even talk about their claws.
No, it is a guess. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, and 1. So most everybody says that this is a true fact. And indeed, it is a true fact. They are the only dogs capable of retracting their claws like cats. And they also have vertical pupils, which allows them to see wavelengths across the full diameter of their lens, which helps in aiding in finding those that are camouflaged.
That's amazing.
So cool.
Yeah.
So predators usually have eyes that are right in the front, just like us humans do. And we've talked about this before with a lot of our animals. You know, prey animals usually have them on the side of their heads so that they can see around them. But yeah, it's pretty good an important part of their ability to hunt is having that great eyesight.
Absolutely. So you guys, really quickly, just to kind of give you, I'm just outlining the line that you guys actually outlined in the beginning of the webinar. And you can go ahead and use a pen, but you can definitely use your watercolor. It just takes some practice. And then, you know, the more time you spend on your watercolors, the better. Since we only have about 45 minutes where we do them, I do them pretty quickly. But if I had more time, I'd probably be blending this brown that I'm doing outlined into his fur more. So I use a very thin watercolor pen, but we have the flat one that we like to use, and this is the one I've been using on the fur. So let me clean it off really quickly, and since it's a little wet still, I can see if I can try to blend the brown a bit more. I'm getting a little more comfortable with blending a little, just adding a little water. You don't even need to add more color, but just going back over your line that's kind of wet still is really cool with watercoloring. I'm getting a lot more comfortable with just doing it and not freaking out if it's not perfect. But you see, it starts to blend more when you do that. And then if you just go back and start kind of going over the other areas around it, it'll look like it's kind of all blended together. And I'm using just a really dark brown. As you can see, that kind of bled a little. So I can go back and just dab it a bit and it'll clean it up. It might not be perfect, but the great thing about watercolor that I love, Lauren, that I'm learning with the more that we do this together is like, it's okay to make mistakes. This is like watercolor is like a really good practice in not being absolutely perfect with all your artwork. Definitely. It's a very humbling medium.
And you can just always add more water to whatever mistakes you made.
Right? So definitely I'm just doing a brief kind of once over here, and then I'm going to move on to the next piece anyways. But as you can see, you guys, if you just keep working on it, I don't know if you can tell, it just starts to kind of blend together more, which I love. And you just get better and better as you do it. At least you get more comfortable with it, you know? So how do you like it, Lauren?
Love it. He's so handsome.
Yeah, he's very handsome. I tried to add more red in our friend. So next dude, I really love this guy. Lauren said she loved this one too.
This is one of my favorites.
I didn't think I would like this one as much. So before we get started, you guys, we're gonna work on the soil because he's really interesting and he's always in the soil. So I'm just gonna draw a little bit of dirt like that, and then probably another line of dirt here so you kind of know where to add the soil. But what's really fun about this one is we're going to use our various colors of brown, if you can see, or earth color. And earth can be all kinds of color. That's what's so amazing about earth, right? There's just, depending on where it is in the world, there's different colors of soil. And so this little guy, does he live always in the ground, Lauren?
Most of the time. Moles spend pretty much the majority of their life underground. If you see a mole above ground, there's a good chance there's something wrong with it, or it's been dug up by a dog or something like that, because they're pretty much always underground. Sometimes we'll see like a young mole that's above ground, maybe just because it's like confused and still trying to figure out its life. But
Those young
yeah,
moles.
most of the time they're underground. And that's why they have such tiny, tiny little eyes. You can barely see them. And I know you're going to add 2 little eyes later, but
Little eyes. The baby is blind.
yeah, they're pretty much, their noses are pretty much hairless. They have a pointed snout. You can't see their ears really either because they have tiny, tiny ears. and they typically only weigh like less than 5 ounces. They're pretty
Wow.
small, maybe like the size of a dollar bill when they're fully grown. But yeah, they have those clawed digits that they use to dig tunnels. Basically, those hands that they have, those paws at the front that we're drawing, they're basically shovels, and they dig so well and so fast. And their noses are so sensitive. The ones that I was talking about earlier with like the tentacles on the nose, the star-nosed mole, they have 22 tentacle-like protrusions,
Wow.
and they're more sensitive to the touch than a human hand. So they can feel a lot more, and they use it to find bugs because that's what they like to eat, is usually earthworms and other kinds of little buggies underground.
I love it, Lauren, because every time we talk about each animal, it's like they all have these weird superpowers. Kind of
Totally.
like us, right? Like, so we have like all of us have our cool little skill set or our whatever makes us special and unique. And I feel like each animal that we talk about, it's like, oh, well, like the mole, right? Like, oh, he can't see very well, but he's got these super sensitive like hands and claws that claw through the mud and the dirt and can dig these like amazing tunnels, right?
hmm Yeah, the eastern moles can hollow out a 160-foot burrow in just one night. And
Wow,
that would
that's
be
amazing.
like the equivalent of us digging a half of a mile of a tunnel in one night.
So
And I don't know
let
anyone that
me
can
ask
do
you
that.
this, Lauren, because someone, maybe a kid will say like, well, why does that benefit? And this is a very human thing to say, right? It's like, well, how does that help us? Or how does that help the earth? Like just digging through the ground, like what are the benefits of sort of what it does to our planet?
Great question. Yeah. So they are a really important part of the ecosystem because they do provide that insect control. If they weren't there, maybe the insects in that area would just be going crazy, reproducing, and there's too many. So they're good insect control, but they also, that by digging those tunnels, they're aerating the soil and turning the
Wow.
soil. So that makes it better for plants to grow and for the health of the soil. And that's something that even I've been learning a lot about recently, is how important it is to have healthy soil. And things like pavement and parking lots and things that just kind of like cover the soil, or soil that's just been having the same crop over and over and over again and having all like the nutrients depleted, is really not ideal for our environment. But if you have moles in an area and other tunnel diggers like ground squirrels, or like we talked about the other week with the prairie dogs, it helps sort of turn that soil around. And even like when they poop and stuff,
Mhm.
that's good for the soil health because it introduces nutrients. And the plants that grow get to benefit from those nutrients and from the churned aerated soil, because if there's no air in the soil, if there's no oxygen down there, then it's not going to be very beneficial to the plants.
You totally answered my question. So for my friends who aren't gardeners, aerating the soil just means that air is going through the soil, correct? And it's like giving it sort of life again, right? Because if it's just stagnant soil, then it won't be able to sort of create like a healthy environment for animals to live in, right?
Yeah, so some dirt and soil, it's just packed super hard, and there are some plants that can live in those soils, but not that many.
Hmm.
And so if we have soil that's a little bit more healthy and a little bit more beneficial to our native plants, and plants that we can use for a variety of different things, good resources for
Hmm.
us and for other animals, then if we have that healthy ecosystem, it's healthy for humans to live in too.
Well, I love that we're talking about it because we were again talking about how certain animals are seen as pests. And this is just like, what was it, our ground squirrel? It's like they put all these holes in the ground and people may think at times that they are pests for other reasons, of course, but also in understanding that they are a very important part of the animal planet, the animal world, and all the things that come with what they do and their jobs in our world, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And the moles, I mean, moles are, in a lot of people's opinions, and if they're thinking about the way that they can benefit, moles are even better than ground squirrels because they don't eat the roots of the plants, they just eat the insects. So they really are just purely beneficial.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's so
they're
cool. And no one
awesome.
really talks about them, like we
I
do.
know. It's
We
because
are
they're
like boss.
shy. They don't come out to play. People don't think about them.
Yeah, and they're not necessarily the cutest.
I think they're pretty cute.
I think they're cute too. I do too, but we're also like we love all the animals because we're awesome like that. So totally. So you guys, really quickly, I actually got a little crazy on the soil, which I really love because it just shows the different colors. You can definitely, I can guarantee you guys, you can find this color of soil anywhere. Like there's soil like this all over the world. You can
I
open,
love that.
go outside and dig and look at your soil, and then go to the park and go look at the soil. And everywhere you go, there's going to be really cool, just like the oceans, just like water and lakes and rivers, everything makes it a really cool color that you've never seen before. So I'm done with the outside of this dude, and I'm killing a little time because it's a little wet. But I went ahead and colored the inside of his, I guess I call it a snout, but is it a
Yeah,
snout? It is a snout. Okay, cool.
yeah.
Well, just like that, you guys, I colored his little snout and his little fingers and claws and stuff to kind of match the soil color. But we're gonna go ahead and get crazy. And so we're gonna go ahead and go into like black, and my black, you guys, is almost done. Like, look, it's like this is my black. Like there's
Oh,
nothing left. It's like one little dot left, but it's perfect. So we're gonna use that, and we're actually just gonna get in there, but we're gonna just add a little water. Nothing, we don't want pure black per se, just kind of adding a little, and then go ahead and use your napkin to control it. And then we're gonna just do some swirls. We're gonna go all the way around this little guy in sort of a fan pattern, and we're just going to keep going all the way around. So it's perfect, no mistakes, just a cool little design, just so it shows that he does have this funky fur. But he's like really short haired, right, Lauren?
yeah, it's pretty short hair, but it's pretty thick. And like I was saying, it's really soft. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of short, and I guess it would make sense he's kind of slick, right? Because he's going to go through all that mud and dirt.
Yeah. 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 I mean, they're like the wolves too. They're found on every continent except for Antarctica and South America.
Hmm.
And so the way that they've adapted is, I mean, there's a bunch of different species of moles, but we're just kind of talking about moles in general. Um, but they can live in grasslands, urban areas, gardens, sand dunes, woodlands areas, pretty much any soil that they can dig a tunnel through, they'll be there. So their tunnels are really special too. They have special little chambers at the ends of their tunnels that serve as bedrooms, and like they'll have a
Wow.
special one that's like a birthing area where they have their babies, and they'll even have like a kitchen area where they store the earthworms that they haven't that they're waiting to eat. And so
That's so smart. So, Lauren, can you
yeah,
share anything about their earthworm fact that I love?
yeah.
I'm
So
so into this.
you guys know we don't shy away from sometimes the gruesome details, but um, they do eat mostly earthworms, and they'll keep them alive and keep them fresh by biting on their heads and then storing them in one of those chambers so that the earthworms basically they make them kind of like paralyzed so that they can't get away, and they just keep them fresh for whenever they're ready to eat them. It's kind of like how we try to keep our fruits and veggies fresh and the crisper in our refrigerator.
I love
Well,
it. The
hey, Lauren,
CRISPR.
I have a trivia question to go along with that.
Oh, please.
Love it.
So I'm going to throw it up on the screen now. How many pounds of worms can one mole eat in a year?
I feel like I
Ooh.
remember the answer, so I'm not going to say anything right now.
Well, it is all over the board. 25 pounds is out. Nobody voted for 25 pounds, and that's good because that's not the right answer. So I'm going to close this poll in 3, 2, and 1. We've got 38% on both 75 pounds and 100, and 25% on 50 pounds. And 50 pounds is the answer.
Wow.
50 pounds
of worms a year by one mole.
That's amazing.
If you think about it, those moles are pretty small, so that's a lot for them.
Yeah. So, hey, Lauren, we have a question from the audience about moles. Do they have babies?
Yes, they do. They have little naked mole babies.
And how many do they have?
They have 3 or 4 babies at a time. And then when they're about 2 weeks old, so mole babies are called pups. And when the pups are about 2 weeks old, they start to grow hair. At 4 or 5 weeks, the pups are weaned. So that means they're no longer relying on the milk from their mother. And then at around 33 days, they will leave the nest. And then by 5 or 6 weeks, they completely leave their mother and their home tunnel and go and make their own tunnels. And they'll usually live about 3 years in the wild.
Wow.
Question.
So you like it, Lauren?
Oh my gosh, it's so
You
cute.
look so silly.
I love your mole interpretation.
Right? See, Lauren, it's like, what did we do today? We talked about moles.
So cute.
I love it. Michelle, did we have any more? I feel like did we have any more trivia?
I've always got trivia.
Let's see it. Let's hear it.
Are you kidding me? I don't know. I don't remember talking about the mole's eyes, but this is a true or false question. Moles can see extremely well.
I did talk about this, so if you guys were listening, you should know.
Okay, so maybe I wasn't paying attention then. So, no, and I will tell you, our audience is paying attention because they say, without a doubt, that is a false statement. And
Good.
You're right, it is a false statement. So, although they can't see extremely well, they can see their eyes are covered in fur, and they are also colorblind.
Wow.
So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead. There we go, I'm back. All right, the last mole question that I have up on your screen now. What is the average time it takes a mole to identify, capture, and eat its prey? Is it 0.10 seconds, 0.23 seconds, 0.54 seconds, or 0.99 seconds? Oh, there's lots of guesses for this one. Lots and lots of guesses. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. And if you said 0.23 seconds, you are absolutely correct.
That's amazing.
Woo! We do have someone in our audience who has a worm farm and they don't want any moles coming to visit.
That makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And I know I have a couple of trivia questions for the red fox, if you ladies wouldn't mind.
Please.
All right, so the red fox diet consists of rabbits, mice, and rodents, birds, frogs, and berries, pet food and garbage, or all of the above. So, and Lauren, I know that you did talk about the red fox diet a little bit too.
I did.
So, all right, we're gonna go ahead and close the poll, and it is all of the above. Like I feel like sometimes
coyotes.
Yeah, the red foxes, like coyotes or raccoons, they're kind of not picky.
The canids. Yeah.
But I love it because they clean up our neighborhoods and they make sure everything's kind of clean and neat and clean up the stuff sometimes the humans don't like to clean up. So
Yeah. So, and I know we talked about the mole babies and how long they stay with their parents, but I don't think we talked about the fox. So how long do kits stay with their parents? Is it 3 months, 7 months, 1 year, or 3 years?
I did sort of touch on this, but you might have to do the math in your head.
Yeah, so it's definitely longer than that of a mole.
Yeah.
So, all right, and we're gonna close in 3, 2, and 1. Every answer had some sort of vote, but the real answer is 7 months.
yes, I knew that.
So
Yeah,
Yeah, Greg said they mate in the winter and then the pups leave the next fall.
Gotta go. Moving on.
well, they're big enough to be on their own. So I want to see, do we have any other questions in regards to the red fox or the mole from our audience? So those look really amazing, Lonnie. You truly are talented. We could, ask you to draw anything and you can do it.
I do want one of those moles that you drew. Save me one. I'll put it up in my garage.
I will. Yes, friend. Of course I will. Thanks, guys. Well, this was so fun, you guys. Again, we killed it again. I don't know how we do it.
I can't wait to see all you guys' all you guys' paintings.
Share them.
Yes,
we love
and I put the link to share your drawings in the chat box. So go ahead and do that. And then yeah, and we share them amongst each other. We actually sometimes they get thrown up on our social media channels. So if you guys
one of them made it into our annual report, impact report.
Oh wow, I haven't read that yet. So it just goes to show that that you guys are making a difference in our lives.
Totally.
Yes, and a shout out to all the artists, the little artists, and everyone who's listening to us, because the more informed you are about our community, the better that we can take care of all the animals here. So love it. We do good work, guys.
One thing I do want everybody out there this week is actually Be Kind to Animals Week. So it was formed in 1915 by the American Humane Society, just kind of as a reminder to stay kind and show humanity towards all of our domestic and wild animals.
I love it.
So,
well
hey, Lauren, one last question that's kind of off topic. Are cats colorblind?
Are cats?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't.
Person and not domesticated person. I don't know. I think, like I have a cat and he seems to see every single color, and we started exposing him at a very young age to different things, and saying with like we were teaching a baby, like teaching him colors. And we can put two things in front of him and ask him, which one's purple, and he'll choose the right one.
Yeah,
wow.
They can see shades of blue and green, but reds and pinks are confusing. It looks like they can see colors, but some of them I think are a little bit more, they can get them confused a little bit more.
All right, and Miss Loni, we have one more request to hold up the pictures again.
Yes, you guys, we really want to see yours, okay? So.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, if you guys want to see them again, you want to see us again, you want to hear the facts that Lauren has talked about, this session was recorded and it'll be sent to your parents' email tomorrow afternoon. So ladies, thank you so much for another fabulous watercolor and learning about wildlife. And I hope that everyone had fun. I know I did. So, all right.
Good to
May
see you.
Bye,
May the
guys.
force be with you.
Bye.
Bye.